Sure. My name's Humphrey Hardwicke. I'm from Luminous. We sort of entered in the VR space a few years ago, and it's very much client-led, and it's been the enterprise space of VR. So we were looking at tangible ways to apply the technology to our existing clients. Automotive being one area, as part of many others.
Hello, I'm Brian Waterfield.
Well,
is it working? Yeah. You might have just seen my presentation, so if you are,
that's
sorry.
it.
So I'm just involved in virtual reality, augmented reality for the car industry.
Daniel?
I'm Saul Rogers. I'm the founder of a company called Rewind. We're a VR production studio, and we made probably the first consumer-facing car configurator for Lexus about 3 years ago on a DK1. It needed improving. Luckily, the technology got better and better and better, and we're working very closely with a few car companies now.
Who was the customer for that?
Lexus for the NX. It's a while ago.
I'm Dan Richardson. I work for Nissan in virtual systems, and I'm mostly looking at how we can, bring a technology into, all across the business, not just at the marketing level or the design, but really pushing it through on every possible platform.
And Francois, we pretty much know you're at the
so hi again. I still do the same thing with ZeroLight.
Marketing end of the thing. What's the real What's the real driving force in the engineering or in the manufacturing sense? What is really driving this innovation to be used? Is it cost? Is it, as we saw, very much trying to build the car around the people that are going to be in it?
I think it's consumer. I think consumer. We live in a world where people want more and more out of everything they have, and with technology evolving as it is, people want more and more out of, say, a vehicle or out of any sort of mode of transport. So the consumer want more. They want their lives to be more easy, more connectable, just more smoother through the day. So they demand it, and we have to fill that need. So virtual reality allows us to get that insight of what that customer really needs.
And I guess, is it proving, you've got some stats, but is it proving to be, the model you showed is not yet available, or is it?
The Evoque's out there, been out for a while.
I'm probably going to go buy one.
Please do.
I don't play golf though, but wait a minute. Can I put a fishing pole in the?
You can get a fishing pole. We tried everything. We got a virtual dog. We put that in the back. We put virtual push chairs, everything.
But I'm also a rower, and I don't think I'll be getting the oars into the back, but maybe onto the roof.
Never.
Yeah, Saul.
Well, I was sitting with one of the guys from McLaren a few weeks ago, and he said the biggest thing why VR's suddenly become saturated from design through to sales and everywhere in between is it's actually giving confidence in what you're looking at, confidence that designers can see in stereoscopy what their car looks like, and then confidence in the people purchasing their vehicle that what they're looking at is actually the car they're going to buy and get at the end. Whereas a visualization, an image, a still, a video, we're never quite sure, but once you put that headset on, you can really believe that, especially with your ZeroLight stuff, you're getting incredibly close to the real thing that you'll get the keys and you'll get your hands on.
I think that's the choice. I think that it's not only consumer-led, but it's choice as well. And I think having that configurational piece when you go into a showroom and saying, I want this, I want that, it gives us, we could sell probably more, or car companies could sell more at the actual showroom through virtual, and it gives the customer more choice, which is what makes it more attractive.
What you see, and VR, but digitization in general, we see it with a pilot with Audi on the online configurator. Just a simple comparison, 3D, where it's interactive, versus 2D pictures. The average basket size of the consumer buying online, or at least completing a configuration, is significantly higher than per 2D. So once you see your car in your context, and you have those alloy wheels that you put on, it's very difficult to change to the basic cheaper one. So with VR, it's even more like that, and that's where we're going to, I think, to your point, definitely.
What about, you said the persona of your customers are off-road, rugged, in charge, and all that sort of thing. Have any of you done anything with actually somebody sitting in the car that they like, and actually letting them drive that car and see the scenery going around them? I know Renault did this a few years ago. It's very, very, you could select where you wanted to go through the Serengeti or
it's fraught with danger. If you offer them an experience that is not close to real life, it's not worth doing. So in the test scenario, yes, you could have engineers that understand what they're looking at and how they're experiencing different things. If you've not got to that point where the drive is as real as it should be, you're then sort of putting a little bit of downer on the experience.
Yeah, I agree. I think we have to consider the technology and where it is right now. I mean, we were asked to do an automotive exercise where we would actually track a seat, so we would match the physical seat with the virtual world, and that was a task in itself. You know, you have to go around and work with HTC and look at the tracking capabilities of that and how that might work. And in the end of the day, you know, you don't want your consumer or user to have a bad experience. So we always try, and when we work with clients or agencies, try to kind of match the expectation of where the technology is right now, and then, you know, iterative sort of over time add more interactivity for the consumer.
We've done two or three of those things. So often when it comes to driving cars, we actually shoot and create experiences where you're being driven by a professional race driver. So you can have the experience of what it's like in the vehicles, but it's incredibly hard to drive performance vehicles. And there's also issues about driving fast and selling cars, which is a whole another minefield. And then we've done some simulator work. So simulating the Aston Martin Vulcan and the Koenigsegg. Again, these are professional vehicles which not a normal human being gets to drive very often, but allowing people a glimpse into that world is pretty awesome.
I guess there's one danger, because in playing games, driving cars, and hitting walls and hitting trees, the car just kind of jumps back into the middle of the thing. I'm worried that young kids think that when they drive a car, that's actually what happens.
So I actually do a little bit of sim racing, if anyone's heard of like iRacing or whatever. And, you know, it's still a big problem where, you know, if you're in the pit lane and you put your brakes on and you're going really slow, or you're turning around the corner, you get the vestibular disconnect where you're expecting the G's and they just don't cut.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of an issue. It'll never be, you know, perfect until we get around that. I mean, you can fix that with motion platforms and everything, but not everybody's going to have one of those in the houses.
Have you tried any of the Vasari systems?
Sorry?
Have you tried any of the force feedback racing seats?
Yeah, I mean, they're fine. You can get things like transducers. You can get to replicate suspension and all that, but it's expensive.
I'll come up to the studio. We'll let you play on us.
Oh, sure, yeah. I'll hit you after this.
Going back to my point, there is a disconnect still there. I mean, the gaming industry is giving us a lot more believability in the actual drive, but a lot of the driving simulators, even within the automotive industry, which are the most expensive going, they have to apply the forces to you. When you drive a car, you experience the force. When you drive a simulator, the force is given to you. So you are put into positions that you probably won't be in a vehicle, just to allow that force to be driven into you. So you don't get the same experience of driving an actual physical car. And that's where a lot of the motion cues and things like that and audio cues can start playing a little bit of a part to give you that experience that makes it more realistic. So we're not there yet. We've got a bit of work.
So can everybody hear back there? This is a very noisy area. Are you hearing okay? Yes? Okay, good. It's so much noise around, and I'm not sure it's all getting back. It's very important points. So I guess this is an area that's yet to unfold even more. People experiencing cars to the point that they would actually, you said
So
it gets down to from 5 to 1.5 visits to the showroom. Is there a chance of zero?
You have several things to that. First, driving the car and physically, getting the sensation is one thing, which is key. For the customer in the buying world, it's also about seeing the car moving. Not necessarily driving the car, but seeing the car being driven. Because when you buy that car, you want to see how the car is going to look like on the motorway or in the city. And that's more, and that has to be real time, because you want to see your car that you configured with your options. So you cannot compute 10 million movies ahead of time. Some agency will be happy, but you can't. So you do it in real time, and that's what you see in Audi cities and in other technology, where we can take a real-time model and apply all those physics. That's a bit what we showed in the videos before, and show how the car is going to behave in real life. Okay, it's not being in it, it's just seeing the car as an object, as a product that you want to buy, being like convinced about the beauty of it.
either as a car going down a windy road or a car being driven off-road? Is that what you're referring to?
So crash test is more for R&D. That's involve a lot more physical calculations. In what we do at ZeroLight, we're more about driving the car on the circuits or on a road or in a city. Or if you go to the Toyota experience here, you'll see the car driving towards you at the beginning. Not for long, because it's inside. So just like for 20 meters, but enough for you that in VR, you're going to move. It's very rare to see somebody who stays still in front of the car. Very rare.
I think there's 2 points. There's 2 points. When you're actually developing a car, you've got to make it as realistic as possible, because you are putting a piece of tin out on a road that people are going to drive. When you get it into a studio where you're selling the product, or you're just selling it virtually, you can be more artistic in the way it's sold to the customer. Like any product is always packaged in a certain way. When you're developing the car, it has to meet standards. So you have to, if you're going to go off-road, if you're going to do it virtually, it's got to be like it's going off-road. We are not there yet in driving simulation, but it's something that we are developing as a company.
Humphrey, did you have? No?
Well, no, I was just saying, I mean, one point I find, I actually pass down to you, is at what point do you stop kind of creating maybe these experiential 4D elements and actually focus on the display and actually a kind of consumer purchasing experience to a kind of that 4D fully immersive element with hydraulics and all the rest of it? I mean, at the end of the day, I guess there's going to be some line drawn. I mean, are you finding you're sort of reaching that point now where you have to maybe scale back at all?
I think that's the other way around. We see it more and more, and I think this is going to come more and more. It's like today, if you go online and you see a 2D configurator with picture, you're like, okay, that's already old. You see something a bit with more picture or a bit 3D live, it's more like today's stuff. Tomorrow, you're going to look at the 3D of the car not moving, you're going to look at that as the way you look pictures today. So you're going to want to see the car moving more and more, animated and driving. So I think we won't stop. Today, we don't show, we stop where it becomes too gamey, then we don't do it. Yeah. That's the frontier today. But this frontier is being pushed and pushed.
I think it's getting it in context. I think if somebody's buying a car, as you've just mentioned, or somebody's seeing their car, they want to see how their life will be enhanced by that vehicle. So if they can put it onto their drive through putting the 3D model on their drive, if they can see it running down their road, they're all enhancing the experience, and they start to make it more real. So it's a virtual model, but it's more real because it's put into their lifestyle, and that helps them make that choice of what they want to get to.
So using Street View, you could actually drive the car into their drive and put it into the...
It's possible,
this is how it looks with your house. So I think there's kind of a lot of... it's almost like sky's the limit. However, in this journey from kind of engineering, beginning the design of a car, to people actually experiencing it, buying it, and using it, are there any gotchas in here? Are there any areas that the continuum isn't continuing, that it doesn't actually go smoothly from one area to the other, to do with getting it from design to manufacture to something that you start preparing things, I assume, when the car is just about to be launched, even before it's launched? Are there any problem areas or areas, shortfalls, I guess I'd say?
I think for shortfalls, no. I think virtual reality and AR has made that smoother, that progress. So from design to engineering to manufacturing, all of those processes can get together very early on in the process to understand that virtual model. So it makes it easier. I suppose the only hold up is that technology is moving on that fast in the virtual world that you've still got legislation based around government-bound, European, around global, that is based in the real world. So if you've got to do physical tests on a vehicle, because that's a standard. And if you're developing a virtual way of doing it, you've then got to get past that standard virtually to get it to do just using it virtually. So it's probably the standards that are not moving in line with the technology that's moving on.
Well, is there, you showed a picture of all the robots making the cars and simulating that. Is there ever a gap between the design, the CGI, and the actual assembly of the car? Or does it just all slide down into the production line
You don't have to answer that.
No, I
It
don't.
all runs perfectly.
Yes, it runs perfectly, as he says.
One of the things I think is that we're missing, and we need to get closer to it, is we don't have any haptic feedback. A lot of car is about how it feels. So using a seat to sit upon is great. When you reach out to grab the steering wheel, touch the dash, when you can't see your hands and when you can't touch the vehicle, there is still an element we're missing. We'll get to it. There are some technologies around there, and there's the idea of having physical bucks that allow you to touch it, but then change the paint color and everything else there. But that's one of the layers that we are way off being able to do. Can't feel the car.
Well, there's always the 1.5 times that people go in and actually do a test drive. They actually take the car out onto the road.
There are half of the people who don't take test drive now who buy cars. I mean, for certain brands. So it's also because they just like the brand. They know the car is going to drive well anyways, and they just want to avoid the hassle of going to the car dealer. But to your point, I think a quick note. Let's say in the theoretical world, all the things you see, it works well, and it's all beautiful and perfect, and you have the 3D factory, and you have the real factory, and the 3D car, and the real car. In the real world, what we see every day is a discrepancy, and there is, in this process, to create the CAD from CAD software like CATIA or others, to a visual model that you use in every touch point, you are going to get a lot of different data type, data model, data format, and then you get lost into a car that doesn't look the same, and you lose. So this is a nightmare. So the key competitivity advantage for OEM would be to find the right platform, the right format, the right way to streamline a bit this complex thing. You want to use it for design, they change design twice a day. How do you go from in a quick fashion? How do you do that? Okay, without loss and without waste constraint. I think that's very interesting particularly for companies like Nissan or Jaguar Land Rover.
I think it's going to be very difficult usually as well to kind of get a massive company and get them to align on one technology. Sometimes it just doesn't happen. So it's just going to have to be make the best of the situation and basically ensure that our processes internally aligned to make it work as best possible and make it as automated as possible as well. That's a massive point there. Like, we can't be forever trying to create cars with a manual process. It's just never going to scale up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, your design vehicles are £1 million a unit. Once you get to that point, when you get to build one, to see it physically out of clay and then start sculpting it out. And so VR adding that additional layer of build and test before you choose the one that you want to actually create a physical model from.
Yeah.
I think what would be ideal in that situation is for the companies that we deal with to get a common format, a common platform, a common level, so that if we use this software, it works in this software, carries the shaders into this software, and it works with that software. If we could have that, we'd solve all the problems. So it's not actually internally building the car, it's probably the stuff that we're inheriting from different things.
There's obviously, building information modeling, which is sort of going on right now, government-led initiative. And that's happening in the construction space of any new kind of property that's being built has a digital reference and footprint. So I guess in the automotive space there would be a similar journey.
Yeah, the BIM model for construction is quite an easy layout, but as you compare it with the car industry, it's following the same process, and we are working towards that.
Yeah.
But it is also pushing it back out to the people that are dealing with different shaders, different things like that. They've got to make them transferable between different products. If we could do that, we could make that even more streamlined.
So the CAD and the CGI and the CAD that builds the car isn't something you can hand to somebody to then, is it a start from scratch, or do you?
No, you don't want to start from scratch ever. This will be the most costly and least efficient way to do it. You want to be able to adapt and use what the OEM is using, and you want to be able. Our goal here, we don't want to change. For instance, at ZeroLight, we try not to change the processes of the OEM. It's too complex to change. They have their own ways of dealing with 3D. What we do is we say, once you import your car into our platform, or omni-channel platform, then we have the insurance that the car will be used for VR, for AR, for 4K, for 8K, for cloud, for anything. It's the same car, we don't have to change it. Same quality, same thing. So this is a stamp we put on it. It gives the OEM, we work with the, like the reinsurance that, okay, I do the effort once, but after I give to my agencies the same model, I go to the ZeroLight platform, I download the picture, the videos, the 3D, and we're done. So if I have one change to do, the only thing you need to fix is how do I propagate that change to our model? So we automate that thing. We do it in 5 days with Audi. So they change the CAD, and 5 days later, it's in every dealership or everywhere, wherever you want. So you can do that, okay? But you put the process in place. That's what we're trying to do.
So we've talked a lot about VR, but not a lot about AR, and it's in the title here. To me, what some of the apps I've seen are about augmented reality being used either by the owner of the car or by maintenance people to actually start fixing and operating the car. Is that beyond the scope of what any of you have done, or is there any comments about that, taking that step?
Yeah, so we're already working in HoloLens development, so mixed reality or augmented reality that's on your face. I'm sure they want another term for it, but it is AR. And it already has apps that are already in there, so you can Skype in and someone can see what you're looking at and they can doodle on it and speak to you. So someone else can control and tell you what to work on. And that's being rolled out all over the place, and that's just really simple. Then if your glasses know what the object is looking at and can look for faults and things that aren't aligned correctly, the kind of levels go up out of there. One of the things I was talking about to someone last week was that once we get these devices down to glasses size, and it's mixing in reality and overlaying things, when it's going to come to a point that I'm going to be driving a car, a lesser quality car, I'm not going to name any brands because God knows who in the studio is, and then it shows me a Pagani overlaid it. So my reality shows me another vehicle, and I pay enough money that everybody else with their glasses sees a Pagani as well. Although then someone will play an ad blocker to show really the world that actually I'm driving something else. So the mixing of realities together and showcasing what it is, so much is about visual fidelity that if these glasses are good enough, my reality can be adapted that I see what I believe.
So renting a bottom-of-the-line rental car and driving out in a Ferrari, that's...
I've got to pick Sol up, but I use the M word. You use the M word.
Sorry.
Mixed reality. Long story.
I heard another one. So there's AR, VR, MR, and RR.
RR?
RR, that's a new one.
Real reality.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no. Okay. Much too dangerous.
There's too many out
Can we just call it content and be done with it?
Content's easier.
Humphrey, did you... no? Okay. I mean, the things I've seen is very much what you described, is a maintenance person either having the manual in front of him, so he's looking at it, knows what the problem is, and it's telling him what to do, where to do it, and so on. Or the idea that a third party who's somewhere else, and the good example is the 747 on the ground in Nairobi with a problem with it and needing somebody who understands something about the intricacies of the landing gear, having somebody there looking exactly at what you're looking at, telling you to open something or remove a cover or whatever.
So remote expert, basically, is something that's already used quite a bit at the minute in manufacturing, for example, where you've got a technician out on the line, he's looking at a robot and there's an issue with it and he doesn't know what he's doing. So he calls up the expert who's in the office somewhere. And there are, augmented reality, applications that will assist with that. But, I think we can really go a step further. Again, sorry, Brian, but mixed reality, where we're bringing in, at the minute, it would be something like highlighting the bolt and they're kind of getting an overlay. But the issue with that is sometimes, the expert has to freeze the frame and they have to manually annotate it with their hand and have to send it back and they're given the audio and it can be a little bit clunky sometimes. So I think, with the next generation of headsets, for example, HoloLens and that sort of thing, where you're bringing people into this mixed environment, what you could actually do is if you're a technician, I would imagine him looking over and then seeing the expert next to him. And the expert just basically points at the thing and says, yeah, this is the thing you need to talk about. And he's making the eye contact. And, it's kind of like, it's been mentioned lots of times today about social. it's really going to be, one of the killer apps for this. So I think it'll be interesting to see how it.
I think it's just like we do it every day. We Google it. So I find probably everybody's done it in this place, that if you've got something at home, bit of DIY, you go onto YouTube, you find a video, you learn how to do it.
Yeah.
Usually a 12-year-old showing you how to do it, which
It
is
is,
frustrating.
yeah. This is how you put the DVD in. Yeah. It's that sort of thing. It's just taking that next level. I think AR is very much about informing, teaching, training,
Yeah.
where VR is more about the experience, although they can combine the two, but not in the M word.
I think it's going to certainly be disruptive, AR, in terms of reducing cost, risk, and I think then you're looking at the overlays with potentially on the actual cars as well, GPS, and then don't forget also the advancements of laser scanning, tracking, LiDAR data, 3D point cloud information, and that being incorporated in real time with vehicles or cars or assets, and how that would be visualized too in real time. So it's going to be really exciting, I think.
Well, a few things I've seen, in fact, a few years ago, was actually the operating manual being an app on the phone, so that when you point it at the dashboard, it shows you which way to turn the knob and so on. I mean, now that everybody realizes, because of Pokemon Go, that you can actually aim your phone at something and some information or something, interaction can happen. I think that's another area. It's interesting because it was rental car companies that were looking at that, because the user manual always gets stolen from the car, so the person who rented it doesn't have any access to it, and that gives them, all they do is, it gives them differentiation. Download the Avis app, and it includes all of the cars and the user manuals, but not as a user manual, but as an AR pointed at the knob or whatever. It tells you how to use it.
So that's something we're doing. Our Infinity brand is doing at the minute. We're exactly just that. The phone, hold it up and you see it over. Take it to the next steps. Again, I think if we're talking about personal reality headsets, I'd love to see this sort of thing come through as an app, where you're wearing this thing most of the time anyway, and then you get into your car, and then if there's a new update or feature that's been released, it'll just overlay it and it'll explain it, and it kind of take it to that next level at the minute, because it is a little bit, it's like the barrier to entry, the point of entry at the minute with VR. It's like, oh well, I have to go over there and I have to put the headset on, or I have to get my phone out and point it, and it's just that extra hurdle. If it's just there and it's almost part of your environment, then it's
like
going to
the
make
thing we used to call a
accessible.
telephone is now very much a screen that we use for all sorts of different things. But the glasses need to look like the ones that Saul and I are wearing, I think, before people will take them on board as something that has a whole bunch of apps, not just one, but a whole bunch of apps, a growing bunch of apps that have to do with their car, with their house, with everything.
Well, it needs to go to a contact lens, or it needs to go to some little plug-in in the back of your
My
neck.
prediction is, because I've seen all this displays in contact lenses, I've also noticed there's this fixation with resolution and high quality. I put contact lenses in the 20 years to never category, but I'll be very pleased when it does happen. Let's just maybe we need to skip the glasses, but maybe if we can get to the plain
it'll
old
go
glasses.
inside. Eventually it'll go inside here.
Absolutely.
And
No,
it'll
that's
stimulate
more
the
likely.
optical nerve from within.
That's more likely.
Well,
like Humphrey.
I just think in general, whenever you're at these events or conferences, or you're with people, one of the things is trying to quantify what VR is or AR is, and I kind of think it's the same in a way, because we're on a new journey now of visualizing things, working in 3D, like fully in 3D away from paper. And I think they do offer different experiences and elements, but ultimately I really see it as the point now where we're just going to continue. The devices are going to rapidly change the types of hardware that's available for us to develop for, and I just see it as a really exciting space.
I think it's a sigh of relief, because when I started doing this in 2006 early, and I think you're the same, nobody was interested. It was like, it was really good, locked away in some sort of cupboard somewhere. And we're actually doing almost the same as what we were doing then. It's just that it's got such a momentum. And you're right, I think the momentum is now carrying all these great inventions.
I've got something else as well, but I'm just like to let the audience in here. Any questions, comments, or any for the panel from the audience? Down here, we got a mic.
Oh, hi. I was just interested in what you were saying about augmented reality. You say you could project your own car. Could that backfire on production of physical cars or any kind of physical item? Why can't I just design my own car instead of buying one?
But it could also affect everything. So why do I physically have to go to an office to sit in a meeting room when I can just put a headset on? Or why do I have to have a big, huge house when I can have a small house and see a large, beautiful living room with my 155-inch TV on the wall when actually it doesn't exist? In fact, I did it this weekend with a HoloLens. I watched Netflix on a screen the size of my wall when there was nothing there, because every single surface becomes activated and can show anything there. It gets a little bit dystopian and a bit scary swiftly, so you should pull it back to somewhere else. The thing I think about the mixed reality headsets, augmented reality headsets, is they are for me, I've said this before, but they're fundamentally the biggest tech advancements we've had since fire. I mean, it's a slightly large statement, but the reality is it's the first device which will augment human intelligence. Everything else we have the world's knowledge in our pocket, but there's a layer between it, which is too slow for us to engage with. If it's already here and it's already scanning and it's bringing me knowledge through different apps, through different experiences, the people that have the technology will have an advantage over the people that don't. And then we're going to get a bigger split between the have and the have-nots. It's going to be an interesting space the next 5 years.
So a key ingredient is actually augmenting some reality with something that is real out there that my five senses can't sense because I'm not there or whatever. It's information, it's sensors, and sensors on me as well. So
I think it opens up so much in the learning capabilities and experiencing different things from around the world that we're almost going to have to search for what comes next in our experiences. Because at some point, and we're doing it now and in various industries, you can go to a beach, you can experience the different atmospheres of that beach, you'll get smiles pumped into the water, splashing on your face. If we start experiencing more about the world, we'll probably stay at home more in this small little house. We're going to have to start to understand how we're going to experience different things to take us to that next level.
But it'll also distribute humanity. At the moment, we're all clustered around the southeast because we all keep coming in and going out. But if we can have real relationships using VR to have our meetings, then why don't I live anywhere on the planet? And that way we can spread out a little bit.
Or have your meetings anywhere on the planet.
Yeah, it's called the final medium for a reason, because you had film and TV, and then once you get to VR, well, that's it, surely, because you can do anything you want in VR. You can create anything you want. You can go anywhere you want. So you're getting back to this kind of like, what is the real world? Do you know what I mean? Like, why bother going back? Yeah. Like you said, dystopian. Yeah. The
memories you build in VR are almost identical to the memories you build from reality.
You're going to solve some issues with AR that we have with VR today, which is interactivity, human touch. Just VR is amazing to see the car in a new world that doesn't exist, that's not there. But you're in a dealership or you're somewhere, or maybe you're even in two different locations. You want to experience the car or the product or anything. It will be easier. I think the challenge will be to have commercial applications that are not gimmicks. And that will be the main challenge. You're going to see a bump like we saw a few years, with VR, where it's VR, it's great, and then after it's like, okay, I know VR, so now show me something really good. And it's going to be, it's AR, it's great, so we're going to see a Pokemon car, we're going to see a Pokemon whatever thing. It's amazing, and after it's going to slow down, and the real content that is realistic and useful is going to emerge. So I'm impatient to pass this first bump of Pokemon cars, okay, and go to the real stuff.
I think there's a real point here that we haven't touched on, is the ethical and the standards that need to be created. Because we're journeying on down with all the hype that's going on and everybody's introducing this stuff. But there's a point where we're going to have to start writing a little bit of standards around virtual reality and augmented reality, so we don't get to a point where you get up in the morning and you're looking for your app to see what you do next. Brush your teeth. Oh, I've got to brush my teeth. You don't want to get that sort of humanity where we're so reliant on the technology. So we need to build in some sort of standards, and I think it's up to the VR community, and I'll mention it again, Immerse UK, to start to set some of those standards around the virtual world.
I mean, just a point of reference, we've done some heritage tourism work in VR and the South Coast, and we created this environment. You could flip between Napoleonic and the Second World War, but actually it drove footfall to the site. it actually increased people's visitation there. So one thing, the English Heritage, you're like, oh, is anyone actually going to bother to turn up now that it's available virtually? But no, it's actually increased footfall to the site. It's quite interesting.
Also, to me, it's very encouraging to know that people who actually can't travel to those places can travel to those places. And there's an opportunity that has a lot of good feelings associated as far as I'm concerned. Anybody else in the audience have okay, there's one over here. Here it comes. We're going to...
Hello. I was just wondering, what's your thoughts on AR for road safety for drivers?
Very interesting. It's not something I'm personally look at within a company, but I think anyone can kind of think of the benefits. Usability, Google Maps just outlaid on the road, so you don't need your little GPS device, you don't need to keep looking down at your, your heads-up unit or whatever. And then you start to think about dashboards. I think you'll be getting rid of the odometers and all that sort of stuff, and then really kind of give it a UI refresh. Like, what sort of stuff don't we need anymore? I don't think you need to see the temperature gauge. Maybe an alert or something like that when it passes a certain threshold. And I'm really hoping that, when we kind of transition to this new way of kind of seeing all this extra information, we really take the opportunity to do some really nice innovation, and we're not held back like things such as legislation or just give me what I've got now but better. That type of mindset.
I think from an augmented reality, the Google cars do that now. They've got road safety built into them. They stop for certain things. It's very clunky and something like that. So automotive driving has got a lot of augmented safety features in there. So that's already happening. I think it's getting to a point where the standards of what that augmented reality does and how the ethical solution on autonomous driving and things like that is how we build them in. But I think augmented reality is already a safety feature within transport.
There's a great website, I can't remember what it is, but it's kind of showing the machine learning problem where it gives you two different situations, and it's like you're a car driving along in a line, and you can either is a person who's on the level crossing and they are a 50-year-old woman, or you can steer left and go in the other lane and take out the old couple. It's kind of like...
Was it Learn to Kill?
I can't remember. Have you seen it?
Learn to Kill.
Yeah.
What's the choice you make?
Yeah, exactly. And these are the problems, that these AI, autonomous drive things are going to, eventually they'll have to make a decision, and what's right.
It'll depend who you're going to vote for in the next election. Too soon? Probably.
Yes.
I think in the brief I said let's try not to get on this driverless car subject because it's worth a whole day actually. But on the road to driverless cars, what we're going to see, I think, is much more augmented reality of the type described. I mean, I already rent cars and have cars that have all kinds of information coming to me in the side mirrors, in the mirror up top, in other places that warn me that there is a car coming up my blind spot and things like that. That's the same kind of intelligence that's needed for a driverless car. But I don't know, I'm not convinced that we'll see everybody in driverless cars anytime really soon. But that moving to that will deliver a lot of things, augmentation to the driver. The cameras can recognize a bicycle. It can recognize all sorts of different things, maybe even better than we can sometimes, and warn us about these things. So I think that's a very good proposition. Any other audience questions or comments? I guess I've got one that has to do with technology. So I've been messing about and watching, kind of, as I said, as a potential investor in AR, VR, all these different things for many, many years. And I saw an awful lot of what was described as cool technology. Isn't this cool? And when I hear that in a presentation from a startup, it's a red flag. If that's really the only value proposition they can give me, then I'd like to leave the room and maybe come back in a year or two. But what I see right now is a huge amount of enabling technology. And what I also see is people that really understand sectors. So we've got some later on actual broadcast content, movie content, things like that, on real estate, all sorts of things. And it's the gathering up of almost the same technology in different combinations with software and content. What do you see over the next, if you look forward over the next couple of years, are there any real technology roadblocks, or are there enough building blocks to be very creative with the knowledge and experience that you have to take us down some of the trajectories that we've been talking about here?
Well, I think you're going to start to see large firm like Foster's, taking on young teams, guys that maybe talk about real estate.
Yeah.
There's some young teams out there. They're using Unreal Games Engine technology to do visualizations, but they're probably going to absorb those guys. And when big companies start to absorb guys into their process, I think that's when things are really going to start to change.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only people that's going to hold us back are us. I think with the generation change and technology moving on, we're getting to a point where creativity, more in line with the arts, inspiration and imagination. I like when you were in the playground as a kid, you used to run around, especially me, playing cowboys, ninjas and stuff like that. It was fun.
Yeah.
VR is fun. Some guy said to me, you've got to get serious with it. No, you haven't. If you enjoy what you're doing, you're going to work better. So when you were a kid, you used to go around the playground and not be intimidated. You used to use your imagination. You used to think of things. Technology in VR, AR gives us that ability to revert back to childhood, to understand and imagine and inspire ourselves to do that a little bit more.
Yeah. I agree. Case in point, a friend of mine, I lent him the HoloLens to hang out with his 6-year-old son. And in the HoloLens, you can place all these little holograms, and you've got like an animated monkey and a dragon and all this stuff, and you put them in the space. And the strange thing was that his son didn't need a HoloLens to see the dragon in the room. He just said there's a dragon in the room, and his kid's imagination fills that in there. It's just that he has got to a point where his imagination is slowed up, that he needs technology to bring him back to that playful space. And they played around in the front room with this ridiculous dragon.
For me, probably acceptance of the technology a little bit more. So in particular, social. So I've got a really great example. Is there anybody out there who's tried Space VR before? Nobody? Yeah, cool.
Just us two.
You two and one guy over there. Okay. So if you haven't, grab a Gear VR, Rift Vive. You can even do it on desktop, but I probably don't recommend it. Because it's brilliant kind of insight into what's going to come with the social side of it. So, you can see other people, positional audio tracking, so it sounds like they're really over there. You can see the head movements, you can see the hands if they're using touch or Vive controllers or whatever. And that's really interesting because you think it wouldn't work very well because the graphics are quite low fidelity and all that sort of thing, but just those little visual cues are enough to kind of, bring you around and realize that this is a real thing that's happening. So when you first go into Space VR, you join the welcome room, and a really strange thing happened when I first went in. You guys probably saw it as well, but you get greeted by somebody's job at Space VR to welcome you into the room, and they talk to you and they introduce themselves and walk you through the controls and all that sort of stuff, and then they finish and you're left there looking at this person, and you just feel the need that you need to speak to them because that's the social norms. And suddenly it doesn't become this gimmick, it becomes real. And I think that's, once you kind of experience that, you realize, wow, this is for real. And I'd love us to kind of take advantage of that, and maybe, virtual dealers, for example, something you might want to look at in the future, where, you have somebody who you can call in with a call button or something like that. And if you want more information on the product, your representative can come in and give you that extra thing, but without the worry of I'm getting jumped on when you go on a dealer and that sort of thing. So hopefully I think we'll start to see a little bit less, skepticism around this, and as it becomes more mainstream,
you could have virtual door-to-door salesman knocking on your door.
Skype or what? Yeah.
So to your question, I think I'll start from what you said in your presentation, getting closer to the customer. I think that's the key for us, for what we do at ZeroLight, and what I think personally too. Whatever technology is cool, but just siloed, doesn't really interest me. It's like NASA. It brings the thing forward, but I'm interested in how to bring that to the mass market. Because in a way, as a buying technology for us, I'm about retail stuff. I want people to see it, and the more people can see it, the better it is. So any kind of technology, like the cloud, like wireless technology, like because the AR is still, you have to have a PC on your neck, still today. VR, you need to have a wire still today. All those things, that could remove those barriers and get you closer to the product, but to the mass market, will make a big impact, I think, to me.
I think just touching on one thing we haven't mentioned also is that we have a great opportunity in the VR world to help the medical industry. And the medical industry has really pushed forward in curing a lot of things that are still plaguing this earth. So if we can do that combined in the VR world, then that means we're putting meaning behind what we're doing as well.
So I like the last session here because it took 5 people that are really very expert in automobiles and so on, and using VR technology, AR technology to do things right now, and yet the future scenarios you see are, and the possibilities and the value propositions you can easily see in other areas. So I think that bodes well for the technology that used to be, just kind of strapping this thing on and playing games or riding roller coasters and looking at very bad graphics. Those days are over, and that's why I got interested a year and a half ago. It came of age, and to see the stuff from Donna here this morning, the content being used in a very creative way, is also very interesting. I'm going to call time. Unfortunately, we could have probably gone on. We're going to take a break. There's, first of all, thank you very much to the panel.